The synopsis of the episode is as follows. A reformed alcoholic is visited by his young son. Unfortunately, he does not have a young son. Episode analysis. The new man is considered by many to be the most confusing episode of Tales from the Darkside. There are different ways to interpret it. Alan actually accepts his boss's drink, but hides his relapse by denying the truth. Jerry is the imaginary scapegoat to rationalize his actions. For example, Alan was at the police station because he was drunk in public, not because he took Jerry there. When Alan's family left him and he started drinking openly, he repeated his boss's words. Don't waste, don't want. That means he stopped denying reality as soon as he drank his boss's booze. His boss's words repeated over and over again what convinced him to drink that first glass. Jerry is an allegorical scapegoat that represents everything a relapsed alcoholic blames for his behavior when he lied to his family about not drinking. Jerry is the embodiment of alcohol, trying to make Alan lose his mind to start drinking again. All of Alan's family, including Jerry, are not real, and Alan dreams of them while drunk. Alan's boss is behind the whole scheme and sends Jerry to harass Alan. Jerry is like the younger version of Boss Alan. Jerry is a type of monster that eats the souls and spirits of alcoholics. Jerry is a type of monster that eats the souls and spirits of alcoholics. Jerry is an allegory for all the suffering that Alan has caused his family. Jerry is Alan's imaginary friend resurrected and now wants to be part of the family. Sharon wanted to end her marriage to Alan, so she and Petey hired Jerry to drive Alan crazy. Jerry is hallucinating while drunk. Jerry is Alan's conscience that has haunted him. Laurel Productions has never confirmed any of these theories or claimed what Jerry is supposed to be. The New Man offers commentary on the devastating nature of drug addiction, especially as it relates to the family unit. That being said, an air of ambiguity around Alan's predicament leaves open the possibility that inexplicable circumstances, not excessive drinking, may have been the cause of Jerry's confusion, a fact that significantly obscures the central thesis of an already fragmented story. The review. I've heard mixed opinions about this unusual episode, but my main problem is that the episode never clearly explains to the audience what happens to the person, this man, or how it happened. I mean, I guess it's one of those make your own story services, but it really doesn't deliver much and confuses viewers more than anything. All in all, not a bad performance, but it was a real headache-inducing game. An iconic tale, The New Man is not the kind of outrageous horror some might expect, but a much more universal and humane kind of horror, the disease of addiction. Alcohol and how it ruins lives, not just those of drinkers but those of their loved ones. It's a nice, simple little story for the Tales from the Darkside series that doesn't have any embellishments or style that it doesn't really need. In fact, it is very realistic and quite attractive. All the actors are impressive, especially Alice, star Tayback. The script is precisely by Mark Duran, based on a story by Barbara Owens, and with direct and efficient direction by Frank De Palma. It's solid every step of the way. While not technically a horror, it was scarier to me than most real horrors of the time. Authentic, without any special effects, Vic Tayback's brilliant performance as an alcoholic who has been cured of complete depression will leave you in awe. Vic Tayback's character, Alan Coombs, wasn't expecting to meet Jerry, nor was he drunk at the start of the story. You see, Alan is really sober. He is doing a good job and his family relationships are being mended. He is very alert. Jerry is not really his son. What happened here was that Alan was trapped. To me, the idea of the story seemed to be to show what would happen if an evil force, call it evil, or whatever, was attacking the process. Recovering alcoholics by setting fire to question their sanity and rob them of everything that is most precious to them, in this case, a good job performance, and a successful battle to maintain sobriety. And after plunging the alcoholic into a confused and uncomfortable mess, a bottle of wine was presented to them, and when they were at their lowest point, they drank immediately, finding themselves in a pit. Wine prison. It looks like the boss and Jerry are deliberately playing with their heads, with certain sneak peeks that viewers intentionally show throughout the episode. The fact that they restart the process with a new guy at the end of the episode seems to confirm this. They are the agents of this force, if not the embodiment of that force itself. So while viewers are wary of Alan's interpretation of events due to his alcoholic past, it's really Jerry and the boss that you need to be wary of. They're always lying and mocked Alan, but he was the only one who could see it. I think the most ambiguous part of the story is the behavior of Alan's family. How can Jerry not be his son if his wife and son recognize him as such? My answer is, Alan's family was stolen from him. Whatever evil force is attacking Alan has changed his reality, as well as his real wife and son. And the fact that Alan's family blamed his odd behavior on them for his relapse eventually helped lead him in that direction, which seemed to be the problem. And so the bottle in Jerry's room wasn't put there by Alan, it was placed there by the devil, to tempt him and damn his soul to eternal torment, and also to eternal torment, to make him complicit in his own destruction through choosing to drink. This story has always struck me as a strangely satisfying idea. Imagine you are recovering, doing everything right, standing tall and feeling good, but there is an evil force looking for you. Every way to distort the reality around you, for the sole purpose of pushing you back into your addiction, your depression, your loneliness, while blaming yourself, questioning your sanity yourself without realizing that you have fallen prey in a completely supernatural and impossible way. And finally, yes, there's a nice class of parables here. It is conceivable that a recovering addict might try to pin the blame on a conspiracy when he relapses heavily, makes extravagant excuses and accusations, and becomes delusional. In fact, that's what we often accuse addicts of when it doesn't seem like they're responsible for their actions. But what if heaven and earth really conspired against addicts? Who can really trust them, including the drug addicts themselves? Alan is completely confused and upset, but can't explain why, since everything that's happening to him seems impossible. For me, that's the idea this episode uses, and that's also why this episode worked for me. If I tried to think of it as purely symbolic, with Jerry representing alcoholism or whatever, that's not going to work for me. That's when you trust Alan's sanity and take the whole story literally, at face value, that creates some sort of sinister feeling. Alan was manipulated and sentenced to suffer, for reasons that were completely inexplicable, despite the fact that he did his best to change his life for the better. Good idea, pretty dark and scary. The key to understanding the plot was that, just before the waiter arrived, the boss offered Coombs a drink. Coombs refused because he was a recovering alcoholic, and the boss had drained both whiskeys. The master left, and the boy introduced himself. I think the boy is a manifestation of Coombs' alcoholism. He shared drinks with his boss or drank alcohol after his boss left, which is not shown in the episode. The rest of the episode shows what viewers do with Coombs, especially when his family thinks he's been drinking. They also couldn't understand why he didn't know Jerry was his son. The thing is, Jerry is an illusion created in Coombs' mind throughout the episode. After Coombs' family, his biological wife and son, left him, he is currently drinking and the incident has been confirmed. Where did he find alcohol? After going through Jerry's room, which is actually his real son's room, he finds a bottle of wine right next to a pile of t-shirts that say Jerry. Jerry is drunk. The boy is even said to be sleeping in his real son's bed earlier in the episode. However, her real son went to live with friends that night. You constantly wonder why his family thinks he drinks when he's never drunk. The point is that he was drunk the whole episode, but in his head was just denial. The episode ends with another man in the office. Coombs has apparently been fired. It was the same boss who offered the man a drink, and since the man was conveniently a recovering alcoholic, he declined. Of course, the episode ends with the boss drinking and Jerry showing up. The boss almost embodies the addictive nature. The need to drink, or maybe just the effect of drinking. When that happens, Jerry, the alcoholic, shows up to attack. The rest of the episode is just a scene where the drunk man tries to hide the fact that he has been drinking. Jerry is not his real son. I didn't believe it because Coombs clearly recognized his other son. It's just set up that way to distract the viewer from the real point of the episode. Pros and cons of the episode. When confronted with a kid that isn't his, Alan responds to his wife with an expression despair, all of which help evoke pity for the protagonist before he relapses. In contrast to Vic Tabak's angry and furious words, actor Chris Hebert exhibits a defiant composure that lends credence to Jerry's ability to anger Alan without provocation. Openly, however, a ridiculously sly grin from Jerry can elicit taunts as opposed to fear or contempt. Despite its disturbing potential, the concept of a man forgetting his biological son was never explored to a satisfactory conclusion. On the one hand, the public has reason to assume that Jerry has always existed despite Alan's claims to the contrary, a scenario that, although initially plausible, ignores Jerry's second father, Jerry in the final scene. Jerry's addition to the Coombs family can also be attributed to paranormal phenomena. However, such an explanation seems to downplay the relevance of alcoholism as a central plot device. The plot consists of 3 different stages, and they are as follows. Act 1. Alan Coombs is a recovering alcoholic who works at a real estate company. He hung up the phone with a buyer and his boss invited him for a drink to celebrate the sale of the house. Coombs is adamant that he doesn't want to drink, but his boss continues to pressure Alan, including saying don't waste, don't want. Alan seems to have thought about it, but he continues to refuse the drink. In the end, his boss drank both glasses. Leaving the building, a young boy entered and asked where his father Alan Coombs was. Alan's boss directs the kid for Alan. Coombs looked confused when the boy said he was Alan's son. The kid doesn't know why Alan doesn't know him. Alan assumed it was a joke and threatened to take the boy to the police if he didn't leave. The boy insisted that Alan was his father, and Coombs got angry and took the boy to the police station. Act 2. Mrs. Sharon Coombs answers the phone. The police call her and tell her that Alan has brought their son, Jerry, to the police station. Alan's other son, Petey, comes down the stairs, and when his mother tells him that Alan took Jerry to the police station, Petey becomes concerned. Mom assures him that everything will be different. The police bring Jerry home and Alan is surprised again that this boy is there. Both Alan's wife and son are surprised that Alan doesn't recognize Jerry. They demand that he apologize for taking Jerry to the police station. Then there are always disagreements in the family. Alan insists he hasn't been drinking, but the family doesn't believe him. Petey is annoyed, assures that he doesn't want to go through the whole thing again and leaves the table. When Alan, Jerry and Mrs. Coombs sit down to eat, Alan asks Jerry to find out who the child is. Alan and his wife argue and she ends up throwing Jerry out of the room. She tries to remind him how bad it was when he drank. He keeps insisting he hasn't been drinking and doesn't want to drink again. However, Alan refuses to believe that Jerry is his son, and as soon as he asks for a birth certificate, his wife yells at him and leaves. While the kids are sleeping, Alan goes into Petey's bedroom and looks around. He tries to wake up who he thinks Petey is, but it's Jerry who turns around, looks at his father with a big smile and tells him he's Jerry. Act 3. In the morning, Alan wonders why Petey left, and his wife informs him that Petey is staying with friends. Alan sits down and starts interrogating Jerry again, but his wife gets bored and forces Alan to go to work. Alan returns home and apologizes for being late. Alan looks very untidy. His boss is upset and says Alan wasn't late. In fact, Alan hadn't been at work for 2 days. Alan's wife calls him at work. She tells him that she can't go through it all again. She takes the boys to her sister. She wants him to see a doctor, but Alan continues to insist that he is sober. Sharon gives the phone to Jerry, whose apology for what happened angers Alan, calling him a little monster. He tells Sharon to get back on the phone, but she hangs up. Alan returns home and his family is leaving. He constantly calls for his wife and cries incessantly, wondering why his family is doing this to him. He has a vision of his wife and Jerry sitting at the table. Jerry worries about his father, but Sharon tells Jerry that Alan is just a mean old drunk who keeps failing his family. Alan is going insane. He goes to Jerry's room and starts searching it, yells that Jerry doesn't exist and starts breaking things. While ripping Jerry's clothes out of the dresser, he comes across a bottle of whiskey. He feels defeated, opens the bottle and drinks it whole. He looks at the broken photo of Jerry. At this point, Alan repeats his boss's earlier words, "Don't waste it, I don't want to." The final scene shows a new person working at Alan's old workplace. He sells the house and his boss brings 2 portions. The new employee, Roger, insists he's in the van and refuses a drink. The boss drinks both drinks, and as he leaves he almost runs over a boy who is asking where his father is. As the boss leaves, Roger looks up as Jerry smiles and tells him he's here to pick him up.